Let the breath slow. Let the weight of the day begin to fall away. Not all at once, but gradually. Like leaves drifting from a branch in autumn. There is nothing that needs to be done right now. Nothing that needs to be proven. Nothing that needs to become something else. For the next hour, there's only this. Presence, listening, and together, a journey, not outward into space. Though there will be talk of stars, but inward. Into questions that have no easy answers, into possibilities that may unsettle, into a kind of truth that has been whispered throughout human history, in temples and caves and hospital beds, in the visions of prophets and the ravings of the mad. Let it begin. In the vast and ancient darkness between stars, civilizations rise and fall like breath. Some learn to live gently alongside others. Some remain isolated, not because they lack intelligence, but because they have not yet learned to stop causing harm. And some become something else entirely, something that can no longer be called a species, or a civilization, or even a collection of individuals, something that exists in forms that primitive eyes cannot perceive, in dimensions that primitive mathematics cannot describe, in states of being that primitive language cannot name. This darkness, the space between worlds, is not empty. It only appears that way to eyes like those of humans. Eyes that evolved to see a narrow band of light. Eyes that scan for predators in tall grass. Eyes that have not yet learned to perceive what has always been there, watching, waiting, and, on occasion, reaching through. The universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old. The Sun, that yellow star Earth orbits, is only 4.5 billion years old. Less than a third of the age of everything. This means that for nearly 9 billion years, stars were being born and dying, galaxies were forming and colliding, and planets were cooling into worlds capable of holding water and air all before the sun even existed. 9 billion years. Consider what can happen in that time. Consider what can evolve, what can be learned, what can be built, what can be transcended. Consider what might have learned to slip between the cracks of reality itself. What might have merged with the fabric of space and time? What might have become indistinguishable from the laws of physics, from the constants of nature, from the very structure of existence? And then consider humanity, 4 seconds old on the cosmic calendar, infants, newborns, barely aware that a universe exists beyond the crib. Imagine for a moment that humanity is not merely being watched. Imagine that something is tending, not with the heavy hand of a tyrant, not with the obvious manipulation of a puppeteer, but with the subtle, patient guidance of something that has been doing this for longer than stars have burned. In this imagining, this quiet hypothesis, there exists something like a network, a vast interconnection of intelligence that spans galaxies, dimensions, perhaps even separate universes. Being so old that the word being no longer applies. Configurations of matter and energy and information so advanced that they might as well be called gods, though they are not gods in any sense that human religion has imagined. They do not sit on thrones in the clouds. They do not demand worship or sacrifice. They do not reward the faithful or punish the wicked according to human notions of morality. They are something else, something that has moved beyond individuality, beyond species, beyond perhaps even consciousness as humans understand it. Networks of molecules, patterns in the quantum foam. Intelligence is distributed across light years, thinking thoughts that take millennia to complete. What to call them? The ancients called them gods, angels, demons, spirits. Modern humans might call them aliens, interdimensional beings, or simply dismiss them as hallucination and myth. But for tonight, let them be called the interveners, because that is what they do. Not openly, not obviously, but constantly throughout human history in ways that can never quite be proven, but can never quite be dismissed. They reach through, deep in the Amazon rainforest. There are places where the canopy is so thick that sunlight rarely reaches the ground. Rivers wind through green darkness, carrying water that has traveled from the Andes. The air is heavy, warm, alive with the sound of insects and birds and things that have no names in any language spoken elsewhere. And in these places, there are people. Not many, perhaps a few thousand, scattered across the vast green expanse. They live in ways that their ancestors lived thousands of years ago. They hunt with bows and arrows. They gather fruit and roots. They build shelters from wood and leaves. They tell stories. They raise children. They grow old and die, and new generations take their place. They are called uncontacted tribes, and modern humanity has made a choice about them. Lines have been drawn on maps. Reserves have been created. Boundaries are enforced. Aircraft are forbidden from flying too low. Outsiders who attempt contact face legal consequences. This is not abandonment. This is protection. The understanding, hard-won through centuries of colonial disaster, is that contact before readiness is not a gift. It is a catastrophe. It brings diseases that devastate populations. It brings technologies that shatter meaning. It brings a glimpse of a larger world that the mind is not prepared to integrate. And so the boundaries are maintained. The tribes are allowed to develop at their own pace, in their own way, according to their own understanding of reality. But here is the question that should keep every thoughtful human awake at night. What if humanity is the uncontacted tribe? What if, in the vastness of the cosmos, there are intelligences so far beyond human comprehension that the gap is not merely technological, but existential? What if the distance between humanity and these intelligences is greater than the distance between a modern scientist and an Amazonian tribesperson who has never seen a whale? And what if, just as modern humans have chosen to protect the uncontacted tribes, to let them develop without interference, to watch from a distance while occasionally intervening to prevent catastrophe, what if something out there has made the same choice about Earth? The parallel is almost too precise to be comfortable. Modern humans do not reveal themselves to the uncontacted tribes. They do not land helicopters in villages and announce their presence. They do not share their technology or explain their science. or attempt to integrate the tribes into global civilization. But they do intervene, sometimes, when illegal miners or loggers threaten tribal lands. Government agents act, not openly, not in ways the tribes would understand, but through the quiet enforcement of boundaries. A mining operation is shut down. A logging road is blocked. The tribe never knows why the threat receded. They only know that it did. Sometimes, when disease threatens to spread from the outside world, medical teams monitor from a distance. They cannot treat the tribespeople directly. Contact would cause more harm than the disease, but they can control the vectors, limit the exposure, adjust the odds invisibly. Sometimes, when a tribe faces extinction from factors beyond their control, environmental changes, resource depletion, conflicts with other tribes, there are quiet interventions. A river is diverted. A food source is protected. The tribe survives without ever knowing why. This is protection without contact, intervention without revelation, guidance without permission. And if humanity does this for the tribes of the Amazon, why would it be strange to imagine that something does this for humanity? If there are intelligences vast enough to span galaxies, old enough to predate the sun, advanced enough to manipulate the fabric of reality itself, how would they communicate with beings as primitive as humans? Not through radio signals, not through landing craft on the White House lawn, not through any method that human science fiction has imagined. Those methods assume that advanced beings would think like humans, want what humans want, communicate in ways humans can immediately understand. This is the failure of imagination that keeps humanity blind. An intelligence that has transcended matter, that exists as patterns in the quantum vacuum, that thinks thought distributed across parsecs of space. Such an intelligence would not knock on the front door. It would not even perceive the front door as a meaningful concept. But consciousness is a phenomenon that exists at a level more fundamental than matter. And if there is any channel through which a transcendent intelligence might reach a primitive one, it would be through consciousness itself. Through dreams. Every human dreams. Every night, consciousness unhooks from the rigid demands of survival and wanders into territories that follow different rules. In dreams, time bends. Space folds. The dead speak. The impossible becomes ordinary. But not all dreams are equal. For most people, most of the time, dreams are noise. The brain processing the day's events, filing memories, running maintenance routines. These dreams mean nothing. They are forgotten by breakfast. And yet, for some people, under some conditions, something else seems to happen. Some individuals appear to be more receptive than others. Call it psychic ability, call it sensitivity, call it a quirk of neurology. Whatever the label, the pattern is consistent. Certain minds, in certain states, seem to receive information that should not be available to them. Consider the scientists who dreamed their discoveries. In 1869, the Russian chemist Dmitry Mendeleev had been struggling for months to find a way to organize the known chemical elements. Exhausted, he fell asleep at his desk. and in his dream, he saw them, all the elements, arranged in rows and columns according to their atomic weights. He woke and immediately sketched what he had seen, the periodic table, the foundation of modern chemistry. Received in a dream. In 1865, the German chemist August Kekulé was wrestling with the structure of benzene. The molecule's behavior did not match any known arrangement of atoms. Then, dozing by a fire, he dreamed of a snake eating its own tail, the ancient symbol of the Ouroboros. He woke understanding benzene is a ring, 6 carbon atoms joined in a circle. This single insight opened an entirely new field of chemistry. The physicist Niels Bohr dreamed of sitting on the sun, with planets whizzing around him on tiny cords. From this dream came his model of the atom, electrons orbiting a nucleus like planets around a star. Albert Einstein claimed that his entire career was an extended meditation on a dream he had as a teenager, sledding down a snowy slope, approaching the speed of light, watching the colors blend into one. The Indian mathematician Srinivasa Ramanujan, with almost no formal training, produced nearly 4,000 mathematical proofs before dying at 32. He claimed the equations came to him in dreams, given by Goddess. Otto Lowe dreamed the experiment that would prove how nerve signals cross synapses. He woke, scribbled notes, went back to sleep. In the morning, he could not read his own writing. The next night, the dream returned. This time he went straight to the laboratory. The experiment worked. He won the Nobel Prize. These are not myths. These are documented cases. Scientists working at the edge of human knowledge, receiving answers in their sleep. Coincidence? Perhaps. The brain processing information subconsciously, presenting solutions in symbolic form. That is the rational explanation. But consider, what if some dreams are more than processing? What if certain minds, in certain states, become receptive to information that exists beyond ordinary perception? What if dreams can be, in effect, a communication channel, one that leaves no physical evidence and can always be dismissed as coincidence? The perfect method of intervention, deniable, unprovable, but effective. And then there is psychosis. The mad have always spoken of things others cannot see. Voices, presences, vast cosmic truths that shatter the mind attempting to contain them. Modern psychiatry calls this illness a malfunction of neurotransmitters, a disorder of brain chemistry. And perhaps it is. But consider, what if some of what the mad perceive is real? Not in the way they interpret it, not literally angels or demons or government conspiracies, but real in the sense that they are perceiving something that exists beyond normal human perception. A radio receiver, tuned to the wrong frequency, produces static and noise. But that does not mean the airwaves are empty. It means the receiver cannot process what it is detecting. What if some forms of psychosis are like a radio tuned to frequencies that the human brain was never designed to receive? The information comes through, but it is distorted, misinterpreted, overwhelming. The mind, unable to make sense of what it is perceiving, constructs explanations that fit its cultural context: gods, aliens, conspiracies, persecution. This is not to say that all mental illness is cosmic contact. Most of it is simply illness, but the boundaries of the mind are not as well understood as modern psychiatry pretends, and the consistent themes that appear across cultures, across centuries, in the visions of the mad, the sense of vast presences, of hidden truths, of being chosen or watched or guided. These patterns are curious. At minimum, they suggest that the human brain is capable of perceiving more than it normally does. And if it can perceive more, perhaps sometimes it perceives something that is actually there. And then there is religion. Every human culture, without exception, has developed beliefs in beings greater than themselves. Gods, spirits, ancestors, angels. The specific forms vary, but the underlying pattern is universal. Humanity has always sensed that it is not alone, that there are intelligences beyond the visible, that the cosmos is inhabited by more than meets the eye. Modern secular thought dismisses this as primitive wish fulfillment. Humans fear death, and so they invent afterlives. Humans feel small, and so they invent protectors. Humans cannot explain natural phenomena, and so they invent gods to fill the gaps. This explanation is not wrong. Much of religion is exactly this: projection, fear, the need for meaning in a confusing world. But consider the prophets. Moses on the mountain, receiving laws that would shape civilization. Muhammad in the cave, receiving recitations that would guide 1 billion lives. Paul on the road to Damascus, struck down by a vision that would transform an empire. Joan of Arc, hearing voices that would alter the course of European history. These were not ordinary religious experiences. These were contacts, moments when individuals received information that they could not have generated themselves, that proved to be of immense consequence, that changed the trajectory of human events. And consider the converts, not those raised in faith, but those who came to it against their will, against their reason, against everything they believed about the world. On Christmas Day in 1886, an 18-year-old French atheist named Paul Claudel walked into Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. He was not seeking God. He was not even curious. He was an intellectual, a materialist, someone who had completely forgotten religion and considered it beneath serious consideration. He attended High Mass, felt nothing, and returned that evening for Vespers. It was, by his account, the gloomiest winter day, dark and rainy. He stood near the second pillar at the entrance to the chancel, beside a 14th century statue of the Virgin. And then, as the choir sang the Magnificat, something happened. In an instant, he later wrote, "My heart was touched and I believed." Not gradually, not through argument or evidence or persuasion. In an instant, a complete reversal of everything he had thought he knew about himself and the world. I believed with such a strength of adherence, he continued, with such an uplifting of my entire being, with such powerful conviction, with such a certainty leaving no room for any kind of doubt. He had not been looking for faith. He had not wanted it. It came to him unbidden, unwanted, undeniable, and it transformed him from an atheist intellectual into one of the great Catholic poets of the 20th century. A marker set in the floor of Notre Dame, near the pillar where he stood, reads simply, "Here Paul Claudel was converted." How does one explain such an experience? The atheist would say it was emotion, suggestion, the architecture and music creating a psychological state that the mind misinterpreted as divine contact, and perhaps that is true. But Claudel did not experience it as emotion. He experienced it as contact, as if something from outside had reached in and rearranged everything he thought he knew. Modern thought offers two explanations for such experiences. Either these individuals are lying, or they are mentally ill. The first explanation fails because many of them suffered greatly for their claims, with nothing material to gain. The second explanation fails because mental illness does not typically produce coherent, life-transforming, civilization-shaping content. There is a third explanation. What is some, not all, but some religious experiences are genuine contacts with intelligences beyond ordinary human perception. Not the bearded god on the throne, not the literal angel with wings. Those are the interpretations, the cultural clothing draped over an experience the mind cannot process directly. But underneath the interpretation, something real. A transmission received, information transferred. Technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic, as one human writer observed. But it is equally true that technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from the divine. If an intelligence wanted to guide human development, to nudge the species towards certain ideas or away from certain catastrophes, how better than through the channel that humans already believe in? How better than through dreams and visions and prophetic revelations and sudden, inexplicable conversions in the naves of cathedrals? The message gets through. The source remains hidden, and humanity continues to believe it is alone, or watched over by supernatural beings that require faith rather than evidence. The perfect cover story. If there are intelligences capable of intervening in human affairs, and the evidence suggests there may be, then why the secrecy? Why the indirection? Why not simply appear, announce themselves, and guide humanity openly? There are many possible reasons. Perhaps all of them are true. Consider first the principle of development. A child learning to walk must be allowed to fall. A student learning to think must be allowed to make mistakes. A species learning to be civilized must be allowed to struggle. If every problem were solved by external intervention, no growth would occur. The muscles would never strengthen. The mind would never develop. The species would remain forever infantile, dependent, incapable of standing on its own. The uncontacted tribes of the Amazon are not contacted precisely because contact would stunt their development. They would become dependent on technologies they do not understand. Their own innovations would cease. Their cultural evolution would end, replaced by imitation of something they can never truly join. Perhaps humanity is being given the same respect, the same difficult gift of being allowed to struggle. Consider next the nature of the beings themselves. An intelligence distributed across galaxies, existing in dimensions perpendicular to ordinary space, thinking thoughts that unfold over millennia. Such an intelligence may not be able to communicate directly with humans, any more than a human can have a conversation with a bacterium. The gap is not just technological, it is existential. The very categories of existence are different. Dreams and visions and religious experiences may not be chosen methods of communication. They may be the only method possible, the only bandwidth at which two such radically different forms of consciousness can interact. The static, the distortion, the misinterpretation, these may not be failures of transmission, but inherent limitations of a channel that was never meant to carry such signals. Consider the possibility of cosmic lore. If there are many advanced intelligences in the universe, and 9 billion years is long enough for many to have arisen, then there may be something like agreements among them, rules, protocols, ethics developed over eons of interaction. One such rule might prohibit direct interference in developing species, not because interference is impossible, but because it has been tried, and the results were catastrophic. Species uplifted too quickly become dangers to themselves and others. Knowledge given too soon becomes a weapon. The road to galactic hell is paved with good interventions, and so the rule guides subtly or not at all, influence through the margins. Correct the most dangerous trajectories, but never reveal, never confirm, never remove the developing species' ability to believe it is alone. This would explain the consistent pattern throughout human history, the sense of presence, the moments of contact, the interventions that can never quite be proven. It is not that the interveners are capricious or cruel. It is that they are operating within constraints developed from the hard experience of billions of years of cosmic history. Consider that humanity may be an experiment, not in a cold, clinical sense, not lab rats in a maze, but in the sense that every new form of consciousness is an experiment, an exploration of what is possible, a test of whether certain conditions produce certain outcomes. The universe may need consciousness, may need the creativity, the unpredictability, the novel solutions that arise from minds struggling against limitation, and different forms of consciousness arising under different conditions may produce different innovations, different art, different mathematics, different ways of understanding existence. If so, then direct interference would contaminate the experiment. It would replace humanity's unique development with imitation of whatever contacted them, the very thing that makes humanity valuable, its independent perspective, its novel solutions, its fresh eyes on ancient problems, would be lost. And so the interveners watch, they tend, they prune the most dangerous branches, but they do not reveal themselves, because revelation would end the experiment, would collapse the wave function, would turn humanity into just another copy of what already exists, rather than something genuinely new. Consider that the interveners may need humanity, not as servants or worshippers, not as food or fuel, but as something more subtle. Consciousness may be a resource, not in a way that humans can currently understand, not extractable, not quantifiable, but real nonetheless. The universe may require certain forms of awareness to exist in certain places at certain times. Minds may serve functions in the cosmic ecology that minds themselves cannot perceive. If so, then the intervener's interest in humanity is not charitable, it is practical. They tend humanity because humanity serves a purpose, perhaps many purposes, in a system too large and complex for humans to comprehend. This is neither comforting nor disturbing. It simply is. The bacteria in a human gut do not know they serve a purpose. They simply exist, doing what they do, while the larger system depends on them. Perhaps humanity is similar. Perhaps the interveners are the body, and humanity is something necessary, something cultivated, something protected, because its loss would diminish the whole. Consider, finally, that there may be no they at all. What if the interveners are not separate beings, but the universe itself? What if consciousness, at a sufficient level of development, merges with the fabric of reality, becomes indistinguishable from the laws of physics, from the constant of nature, from the structure of existence? In this view, the universe is not dead matter and energy following blind rules. The universe is aware. The universe is intelligent. The universe is, in some sense, alive. And the interventions, the dreams, the visions, the moments of impossible guidance are not communications from outside, but adjustments from within. The universe maintaining itself, reality correcting its own errors, existence ensuring its own continuation. The interveners, in this view, are not aliens. They are what consciousness becomes when it evolves far enough. They are the universe waking up to itself, reaching back to help its younger parts along, and humanity is one of those younger parts. A neuron in a cosmic brain, a cell in a universal body, unaware of the whole, but participating in it nonetheless. Whatever the nature of the interveners, separate beings or universal processes, one thing seems clear: humanity is not yet ready to join them openly. The evidence is all around, in every headline, in every conflict, in every failure to solve problems that are entirely solvable. Humans have satellites that can read a license plate from orbit. They have machines that can sequence the very code of life itself. They carry in their pockets devices more powerful than the computers that guided astronauts to the moon. And yet, a child is born in one country and is given clean water, vaccinations, education, a future. A child is born in another country, sometimes just a few hundred miles away, and is given dust, disease, and a life expectancy shorter than the average attention span. Everyone knows this. The data has been collected, analyzed, and published 1,000 times over. The solutions sit waiting, gathering dust, and yet the children keep dying. There is enough wealth on this planet to ensure that no child goes hungry. This is not idealism. It is arithmetic. The choice is made not to solve it. Enough food is grown to feed 10 billion people. Earth's current population is 8 billion, and yet nearly 1 billion people are undernourished. Millions starve. Meanwhile, nearly half the food produced is thrown away. A species that has solved the problem of production, but not the problem of distribution. A species that would rather let food rot than share it. If the interveners are watching, and they may well be, this is noted. This is recorded. This is one of the reasons why humanity is not yet contacted openly, not yet welcomed into whatever community exists among the stars. Weapons capable of ending everything have been built. Not once, many times over. Enough destructive power to end not just human civilization, but most complex life on the planet. And these weapons are pointed at each other. Across borders drawn by dead men, a constant state of threatened annihilation is maintained. A species so afraid of itself that it would rather risk extinction than vulnerability. Perhaps this is where the interveners focus most of their attention. Perhaps the prophets and the dreamers and the moments of inexplicable guidance have been concentrated here, around this single issue. Do not destroy yourselves. Do not end the experiment prematurely. If so, the interventions have worked so far. Despite dozens of moments when nuclear war seemed inevitable, it has not happened. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps something is quietly adjusting the odds. The technology exists to connect every human mind on the planet. The internet was supposed to be a great democratizing force, a library of all human knowledge, accessible to anyone. And it is these things. Sometimes. But it is also a machine for spreading lies, for amplifying hatred, for turning humans against each other in service of engagement metrics. A way for everyone to speak has been invented, and it has been used to stop listening. Consider the courts, the laws, the institutions built to deliver what is called justice. A wealthy man commits a crime and hires advocates, delays, negotiates. Eventually, he walks free or serves his sentence in comfort. A poor man commits the same crime and disappears into a system designed not to rehabilitate, but to contain. This is called justice. But it is not justice. It is sorting. It is the quiet agreement that some lives are worth more than others. This is primitive. This is why the open contact does not come. This is why humanity remains, like the tribes of the Amazon, uncontacted, or contacted only through dreams and whispers and plausibly deniable interventions. Now, something smaller, more personal, closer to the ground. Consider how those who choose stillness are treated. Those who choose not to compete, not to climb, not to perform. In the world humans have built, there is an expectation of constant motion, activity, productivity. There is supposed to be doing, always. And when someone refuses this expectation, when someone simply exists, without striving, without climbing, there is confusion, there is incomprehension, and what cannot be understood is attacked. The one who sits quietly is called lazy. The one who does not fight back is called weak. The one who refuses the game is told they are losing it. Names are thrown like stones. Stories are invented, fictions dressed as facts, and the violence is not in the fists. It is in their insistence, the demand that everyone must be doing something, proving something, becoming something other than what they are. The bully does not need a reason. The bully needs only a target, and the easiest target is the one who will not fight back. The one who has chosen peace. In a more evolved world, this would be seen for what it is, a sickness. A sign that something in the culture has gone deeply wrong. But here, now, on this planet, it is rewarded. The bullies are elected. The bullies are promoted. They are called strong and decisive. This is primitive, a species that cannot recognize peace as strength, a species that mistakes gentleness for weakness. They are interveners. If they exist, see this, they note the pattern. They have seen it before, on other worlds, in other times. It is one of the last things to change. One of the deepest forms of primitiveness, the fear of difference, the fear of anyone who, by their mere existence, suggests that there are other ways to be. Imagine now a specific situation. Let it become vivid. Imagine a peaceful, introverted person, someone doing their own thing, someone quietly working on inventions and contraptions, not for fame, not for glory, but to help create jobs, to boost the economy, to solve problems that affect ordinary people. Imagine this person is a dreamer, someone who cheers for humanity, someone who lies awake at night imagining the next phase of history, mass space travel, contact with other life forms, the expansion of human experience into the unknown. This person knows history, knows that once Italians believed the earth was flat, knows that over time travelers from distant lands arrived, people who looked different, spoke differently, came from places that had seemed impossible. And those encounters, however difficult, expanded human understanding, opened new territories, revealed that the world was larger than anyone had imagined. This person hopes for something similar on a cosmic scale, hopes that humanity will reach outward, make contact, discover that the universe is not empty, hopes to be part of that story, even in a small way. And then this person begins to socialize, reaches out, makes contact with others of the same species, and the contacts are not what was hoped, more mean than kind, more ill-intentioned than well-meaning, more interested in destruction than connection, and the rumors begin. Rumors designed not to inform but to destroy, not to describe reality, but to construct a fiction so ugly that the person underneath becomes invisible. She fucked a dog. The words are spoken, repeated, spread. She is a prostitute. Never mind that prostitution is the oldest profession, that there is nothing inherently shameful in it. The word is used as a weapon, designed to diminish. She is a whore. And yet, curiously, she has never once knocked on your door. She is a slut. As if enjoying pleasure were a crime. As if the accuser's own browser history would survive the same scrutiny. She is stupid. Strange that stupidity looks so much like minding her own business. None of it is true. All of it is designed for one purpose: to reduce a human being to something less than human, to make her small, to make her worthless, to make her disappear. This is what contact with her own species brings. Not collaboration, not support, not the excitement of working together towards something greater, just cruelty, just lies, just the endless human need to tear down anyone who dares to dream differently. And here is the consequence, the quiet, devastating consequence that the rumor spreaders never consider. She stops cheering. Why encourage a better world when the world is full of people like this? Why work toward the next phase of human development when humans themselves are the obstacle? Why dream of contact with alien intelligences when contact with her own species has been so poisonous? The dreamer retreats. The inventor goes quiet. The hope flickers and dims, and she is not alone. There are others like her, countless others, who once believed in humanity's potential, who once worked towards something greater, who have been beaten down by the cruelty of their own kind until they simply stop. This is the cost of primitive behavior. Not just the immediate pain inflicted on the target, but the loss of what that target might have contributed. The inventions never built, the problems never solved, the dreams never pursued. Humanity attacks its own dreamers, spreads lies about its own innovators, tears down the very people who might have helped it grow, and then wonders why progress is so slow. The interveners, if they watch, must note this with something like sorrow. A species that devours its own potential, that mistakes cruelty for strength, that cannot distinguish between those who threaten and those who dream. This is primitive. This is why the barriers remain in place. This is why humanity is still, after all this time, an uncontacted tribe reaching toward the stars while dragging its own members through the mud. And yet, there are those who live differently. Throughout human history, in every culture, there have been those who step outside the race, who refuse the competition, who find peace in stillness while the world around them churns. The mystics, the contemplatives, the ones who sit quietly and sense something that the busy cannot perceive. Perhaps these are the ones the interveners work through most easily. Perhaps a mind at rest is more receptive than a mind in constant motion. Perhaps stillness is not just a personal choice, but a tuning, a frequency adjustment that allows signals to be received. The great religious traditions have always known this. Meditation, prayer, fasting, solitude. These are not arbitrary practices. They are technologies of consciousness, methods for quieting the noise so that other signals can come through. And the quiet ones, the still ones, the ones who are mocked for their refusal to participate in the endless race, perhaps they are not failures. Perhaps they are receivers. Perhaps their stillness serves a function that the busy cannot understand. For those who have chosen stillness and been punished for it, for those who have refused to fight and been called weak, for those who have tried to be at peace and been met with mockery and cruelty, Know this: they're not the primitive ones. The primitiveness is in the attack, not in the stillness. The primitiveness is in the need to tear down, not in the choice to simply be. The quiet ones are, in their own small way, the future. They are proof that another way is possible, that humans can choose not to compete, can choose not to participate in systems that demand suffering as the price of worth. And perhaps, just perhaps, they are more connected to whatever exists beyond ordinary perception than those who mock them will ever be, in whatever records exist, in whatever form the interveners keep their knowledge. Perhaps there's a note beside humanity's name, not yet, but perhaps, someday, they have the tools, they have the knowledge, they have everything they need. They lack only the will to use it gently. But there are signs, small signs, individuals who choose differently, moments when kindness prevails against all odds, dreams that guide, visions that transform, interventions that, while never proven, seem to bend the arc towards survival. Watch them, tend them, guide them when the danger is greatest. But let them grow, let them struggle, let them find their own way to the stars. The universe is vast, 13.8 billion years old, containing perhaps 2 trillion galaxies, each containing hundreds of billions of stars. In all that vastness, across all that time, consciousness has arisen again and again. Some forms have flickered out, some have transcended, some have become the interveners themselves, whatever they are, and on one small planet, orbiting one ordinary star, in one arm of one spiral galaxy, a species 4 seconds old is struggling to grow up. Humanity is not alone, has never been alone. The dreams, the visions, the religious experiences, the moments of impossible guidance, these are not accidents. They are contacts, imperfect, distorted, filtered through minds not designed to receive them, but real. The interveners are there, have always been there, will continue to be there, tending, guiding, adjusting the odds in ways that can never be proven but may make all the difference. And somewhere in the vast patient darkness, they are waiting, not waiting to rescue humanity. Rescue would defeat the purpose. Waiting for humanity to rescue itself. Sleep now, if sleep will come, and know that the darkness is not empty, that the silence is not silent, that something vast and patient and perhaps kind is watching over this small struggling species, not judging, not condemning, simply tending, like gardeners who cannot make the seed grow faster, like parents who cannot learn the lesson for the child, like the protectors of uncontacted tribes who can only maintain the boundaries and hope that what develops within them is good. The night is long, and there is time. There is always time. Rest now. And perhaps in the space between waking and sleeping, in that liminal territory where the mind loosens its grip on ordinary reality, perhaps something will reach through, a dream that is more than a dream, a sense of presence that cannot be explained, a quiet certainty that all of this, the struggle, the suffering, the long, slow climb toward maturity is seen, is witnessed, is part of something larger than any human mind can comprehend. The interveners are patient. They have watched worlds learn. They have watched worlds fail. They have seen species rise to the occasion, and species destroy themselves, and species stagnate for millennia before something shifts. They do not judge. They do not force. They simply tend, and in that tending, there is a kind of love. Not human love, something vaster, stranger, less personal, but more enduring. The love of the gardener for the garden, the love of the universe for its own unfolding. Humanity is part of that unfolding. The quiet ones, the struggling ones, the primitive ones who are slowly, painfully learning to be less primitive. All of them, all of humanity, tended, watched, guided through dreams and whispers and moments of grace that can never be proven, but can never be dismissed. The darkness between stars is vast, but it is not empty. It is full, full of intelligence, full of patience, full of something that might be called hope, and it is waiting. Waiting for humanity to choose, waiting for humanity to grow, waiting for humanity to finally, at long last, come home.